Well, let's continue with the top story of the day. And of course, that is the Madlanga Commission. And we're going to dive a little deep, in fact, into some of the testimony that came out today. And we're joined by Tshwane University of Technology criminologist Gulufelo Ragubu, as well as criminal law expert Ian Ellis, and the Institute for Security Studies Senior Training Coordinator Willem Els. And this is all to get a better understanding of today's testimony. We'd remember, of course, last week, starting with those explosive allegations from, of course, the police commissioner. And, of course, many people were interested in that. We then heard, of course, from Fannie Masemola, but a change in gear, one might say, when it came to the conversation around the policies around policing. And I'm going to start with you, Prof. One of the biggest things Van Rooyen said, and she was clear when she said it, that Minister Senzo Mchunu had no legal authority to disband the political killings task team. Talk to us about the legal implications of that and why he felt he had the right, essentially, to disband that unit.
Thank you for having me. Remember the past two witnesses' allegations or testimonies centered around the constitutional mandate, your section 205 to 207, where they tried to highlight the powers, the responsibilities of the police minister and the responsibilities of the national commissioner per se. And in that, they tried to lay a ground for us to understand where the issue comes from, so that we can understand this overreaching, overstepping, which they've been contextualizing. But today, a perfect witness, if I were to say so, if there's such, because she came in to assist South Africans understand what is it that the minister is expected to do legally and what is it that the national commissioner is expected to do. And she was very precise to say the minister acted outside his authority. Then obviously the legal experts, they will have to come in to explain the repercussion. And the minister himself, because I'm sure he's mentioned as a witness, where he has to come in to highlight how did he arrive at the decision. And remember, there's a mention where it looks like he consulted the president, and we need clarification with that. Even if he has consulted with the president, such a decision cannot be taken between two people, because the constitution is very precise with those executive power or authority. But over the past testimonies, we got to understand of the constitutional power struggles. And some have been saying they are blind or blurring lines, or even the constitution is not explicit when it comes to the responsibilities or decisions that the ministers can take, or even those that the police commissioner can take. But then from this commission, I guess a recommendation will have to come in with a legal reform.
Certainly.
So that the constitution can be explicit. But I think people are very choosy when it comes to interpretation of certain statutes to suit political agenda. For me, it looks like it's clear. It's just that there's been precedent set with the political leadership and political deployment, wherein they will overly utilize the authority to get their way. Should it be true that there's political infiltration, obviously a decision was taken in the midst of those prescripts in the Constitution.
Certainly. And you talk about that power struggle. You talk about those lines blurring. And I'm going to bring you in, Willem, just to talk to us a little bit about how damaging is it when those lines are blurred, when those lines are crossed in regards to who gives directive and when.
Yeah, good evening to you and good evening to the panelists. I think that is extremely damaging, especially from an operational perspective. If you have your operational management and, of course, all the police officers serving under them, and there seems to be this challenges going on, this squabbles, it is not very good for the morale of the police officers. There's a lot of uncertainty. And of course, if within your senior management, there seems to be some challenges with insubordination of one commissioner towards the national commissioner, that is also very challenging in terms of the respect, in terms of the discipline, but also in terms of the trust of the police. But also, if you look at that from the outside, the public perception is being tainted of the police. The public protection of the minister is really tainted, and that actually lowers your trust levels of the public and of the police officers in management and in the minister.
And I think as well, Professor really, if you will, laid the scene for us, specifically where she mentioned, of course, that there was an utterance that the president supported this decision. Ian, I would like to get your perspective on this. We understood, of course, the presidency sent a statement, not confirming or denying what was said. But I think it is really worth knowing as to why is it so important to know whether or not the president essentially supported this decision or not?
Well, let me put it in this way from a legal perspective, is you're dealing with powers that are granted by the Constitution, including in those powers, the powers given to the President of the Republic of South Africa. And that basically makes him the uppermost important person with regards to government decisions being made. The thing is with something like this is that, yes, you need the buy-in of the president, and yes, you'd need the support of the president in unpacking such a special unit. The biggest thing is, however, that we need to understand is that this is also slightly out of the control of where the president in actual fact lies. And in reality, it's once again one of those blurred situations of whether or not the president has acted within the constitutional powers of his mandate if in fact the consent was given by him to do away with this unit. And the fact is, even if he supported it, it's not necessarily his call to make to do away with a unit of the specific nature. And I think that's where it becomes an issue of being blurred. Where is the power? Where is it that there is support for an idea, as opposed to where is he actually allowed to be the overriding decision maker for such a unit being done away with.
And what does the presidency's statement, say to the public as well? Given the fact that I remember there was a particular term that the statement you said they don't want to give a piecemeal response. Does that signal perhaps maybe to the public caution, or does it also perhaps? Yeah, talk to me a little bit about that.
Let me put it in this way. It certainly doesn't give an idea of direct certainty, and unfortunately, it tends to go ahead and lead into this political oversight of sitting of proverbial fence sitting. And this is where the problem comes, because one can't go ahead and really determine whether this was an actual supported decision by the president's office, or whether this is now becoming another exercise in flip-flopping between decisions and where his constitutional powers begin and end. We've already seen issues with regards to the president perhaps overstepping his boundary in respect of the constitutional consents given, and this is now becoming yet a further example. And the fact that they don't want to give a clear yes or no is indicative of the fact that they know something is wrong. We know as the general public something is wrong, and nobody's taking responsibility or accountability from the higher ups as to who is responsible for what's taken place.
We know that something is wrong. Yeah. Professor, you agree? I saw you nodding. What is wrong with our policing culture and the policies, the framework that surrounds it as well?
What is wrong is interpreting the existing policies to push our own political agenda. I don't think there's anything wrong with the Constitution per se, but then the interpretation, like I said, it is done to suit a particular narrative, a particular agenda. So, so we all getting to understand the magnitude of this political infiltration, the magnitude of this syndicate that is also ruling the SAPS, if I were to put it that way. So for such decisions to be taken, obviously there has been an external factor pushing to even undermine the National Commissioner, for example. Imagine a Deputy National Commissioner signing off. Yeah. That is unheard of. Imagine taking a decision for a province without even consulting with the provincial commissioner. And obviously when such a tax team is disbanded, we need evidence, scientific evidence on the table. People like Willem, they do research all the time. They will put a document on the table to show that this is not working, this is just wasteful expenditure. But there's nothing like that that substantiates the decision. And again, how do you take a decision and not even have a plan to manage all these cases or to manage all these dockets? Because obviously there are witnesses that should be protected due to the nature of the investigation. It's an organized syndicate, right? Obviously they are very dangerous. The victims, witnesses must be protected. But then when you call for disbandment urgently, obviously you had an ulterior motive. That's how it looks at the moment. But the Madlanga Commission will have a field day trying to connect the dots. But today, it was his reference, certain dots have been connected, and the witness corroborated both Mkhwanazi and Masemola's testimonies, clearly that. But let's wait and see, because she transitioned us to the second phase of the commission, where now, when others come, we do not question whether they were overreaching, overstep. We've passed that stage. Now, I can't wait to hear of the minister's explanation. Who did he consult and to what greater extent? What informed decision to expand, and where is the evidence?
And I think it's such a tug of war where you could say, is it perhaps a misinterpretation of the laws, or are we looking at deliberate political interference here?
Deliberate political interference, misinterpretation. Where is the evidence that the political task team is not delivering? If it's not delivering, where is a concrete plan to show that you understand there's an existing investigation? Certain cases are still in court. So how do we manage such? Are there resources in place to ensure that justice will be served? I don't think there was even any interest around that.
And I'm going to bring in Willem to talk about that a little bit. We heard Professor saying that your work involves researching, looking at some of these policies and clearly pointing out that certain things do not work. This uncertainty in terms of those responsible for giving directives, and I would like to believe that the police body is not the first time we're seeing this overarching, overstepping use of power in some of these departments. What is the problem, and why has this continued specifically to persist in so long, specifically as well in other leadership roles within our country?
Yeah, I think, and I agree with the professor. We must just remember that it's still early days. It's developing, and of course the minister and the others will have to come and put their views across, etc. But what you mentioned here is extremely important. The moment you, as a national operational head, is seen to be standing up against your political head, it is a possible career-ending decision that you are making. And it's far-reaching for not only for you, but for those working with you, and also for your institution. So that is maybe why in the past there must have been some, or there may have been some overreaches that where the operational management was not strong enough to actually push back and stand for what is right. So here it is far-reaching, the implications of the task team being closed down, especially if you look at the reasons that were provided by both General Mkhwanazi and also by General Masemola, that your criminal syndicates are very involved and they are pulling the shots and they infiltrated. And that is of course, that's extremely alarming, and it warrants further investigation but also action. So that is maybe one of the reasons why in the past we never got clarity on that. So even with this now around, we see that, and here the legal experts can come in on that. If the Constitution is not so unclear, but there are some grey areas based on your interpretation. So that is the ideal opportunity now, because we know that the Commission cannot make any verdict, they can't make any judgment, they will make recommendations. But eventually, one of the recommendations might be that we get some clarity on that in order to cut out or to minimize future exploitation of this.
And do you see us perhaps looking at a standalone law, perhaps, to clear out those grey areas?
It can be that, and once again, I'm not the legal expert. Normally when something comes into the interpretation of the Constitution, it ends up in the Constitutional Court, and then they make a judgment, and then we abide by that. So that's maybe the way we should go, but we should ask our legal experts here.
Yeah, and Prof, I want to actually shift the focus now to parliamentary oversight. We also heard there from Van Rooyen speaking about the fact that Parliament was warned essentially about disbanding this unit, this specific unit, crucial essentially, and as we're seeing even playing out most recently in some of those arrests that have taken place, that lack of action from Parliament, I mean, that speaks volumes.
Concerning, and that might be a reason, one of the reasons why the National Commissioner did not consult that oversight body, because ideally, legally, he could have refused this unlawful request, right, or seek attention of the president, which he has done, but he has not even went as far as consulting with the oversight body, the National Commissioner. Maybe one of the reasons are such that he was well aware that they were acted nonchalant at some point when the provincial commissioner went on to report explicit information regarding political infiltration and the syndicate running the show in the organization, and not much was done. And we can't be saying now they are acting on that issue, because it's an ad hoc committee which is inclusive of other members that are not ordinary members of the committee, right? So it's only now, we appreciate that, but they did not deliver. Then it might be also from the recommendation, the review of the oversight bodies. They must be capacitated, they must be empowered, they must be analyzed extensively to verify if indeed they're still delivering as expected. Because this should have been handled by them long time ago. We shouldn't have been this far. But then it had to involve South Africans, because it looked like protocol was not going to deliver required outcome. The national heads were now frustrated, provincial heads now frustrated. Then they had to involve this whole of South Africa, which has implications as well. And again, at some point, I even understand why in the beginning the National Commissioner was a bit, and it looked like he was uncertain. It was not clear as to whether he agrees or not, right? Yeah. To ensure stability in the organization. By the time, it could not have been safe to come and stand up and say, I agree with Mkhwanazi, because that could have been something else. Destabilizing processes, crime control, prevention, and all should have proceeded as normal, which it did. It's only now with controlled measures that we get to understand the National Commissioner's position and frustrations, and in this well-organized manner. Business is business as usual in the SAPS, right? But it is fair that we got to understand where he stands, because he corroborated now Mkhwanazi's actions. But in the beginning, it looked like, no, he was confused. He was not sure. He's not supporting. We are not sure where he is and now and that. But now it's clear. They corroborated. It's fine. But then oversight bodies, the commission might also recommend that they be reanalyzed, re-established, re-looked into, because some of the members are even implicated. So how do you go there knowing that there are certain members in those committees, right, that are hindering certain investigations or even abusing power? So they might also be recommended for certain action.
Certainly. And
housekeeping.
Housekeeping.
Yes.
And the question also has to remain, what could they have done differently? But we'll dive a little bit into that when we return from the break and we continue our conversation, of course, of day 6 of the Madlanga Commission. Welcome back. We are continuing our conversation regarding the leadership blurred lines really in the South African Police Service. And we are, of course, speaking to our guests, and we've gotten some reaction from some of our viewers. And we're going to take some WhatsApp, starting, of course, with Sibuleko, who says supremacy of the law dictates that you can only act lawfully if the law gives you a power to act. It's not about any individual or their positions or even wishes. And that is the rule of law. Speaking directly there, I would assume, to the president's decision as well. Of course, we've got Constance, who's also given a WhatsApp saying, we as a country urge the Madlanga Commission not to end after the SAPS corruption. We are saying all South African state departments must come to light. Not only SAPS is rotten, let them all confess. And that's really true, that this has really opened our eyes perhaps to other leadership crises within our departments. And another one from Thompson here saying the legal head, Major General Van Rooyen, cleared everything through the law. The minister was totally wrong for disbanding the PKTT. Again, the minister undermined the National Commissioner, him as well as the Deputy National Commissioner. So it means the minister is incompetent to take such a decision. He doesn't know procedures in the police department. I would have to ask as well, is it that he doesn't know, or again, as we were talking, Prof, is this just an undermining of the law? We've got another WhatsApp from Ngosi saying, the time has come for the ANC to demonstrate that corruption, criminality, gangsterism within their ranks are exposed and accounts for their nefarious deeds. And of course, that's been the last WhatsApp. And we are urging viewers as well to continue giving us their feedback and their input into this discussion. Prof, you saw, of course, the reaction from the public, people wanting to demonstrate accountability. And that's essentially, we were talking a little bit earlier about the parliamentary oversight, where they failed in that sense to bring that, dropping the ball on such serious allegations. Where then does the accountability lie? Who then essentially will be held accountable for this?
That is a very huge question. That is why I said housekeeping, because obviously a retrospection will highlight who should have done what at what particular time, because them not responding honestly exposed the commissioner, the provincial commissioner, highly so, because he was left now to fend for himself, because you run to such commissions, right, or to such bodies, oversight bodies, for protection, because their responsibility is to ensure that there's accountability and transparency. But it looks like that did not take place. But all of this also challenges the commission. Will it come to a direction where now they talk to issues of cadre deployment in the country? And also I agree with the first WhatsApp, where it looks like this overacting, this misinterpretation might not only be in the South African Police Service. You might find that all other ministers somewhere are overreaching. They are abusing their powers. They are subjecting their subordinates to unlawful decisions, and that has not had opportunities to serve anyway. Right? No, those decisions are running, hence service is not being delivered. So with the messages, it shows that South Africans are working with the Madlanga Commission. They understand what's happening, but highly frustrated because level of crime, it's out of control and actions required. But one would have wished for Madlanga to have more precise powers, because recommendations alone, with all these experiences we have with commissions, it's not enough. But that is another topic for another day, where in these commissions just don't become expensive talk shows where we just get to hear what to do, where to do. No, we wish for more concise, actionable recommendation that can be verified. And whistleblower protection should not end with the commission. There should be post-commission protection, so to encourage other witnesses to come to forth and understand that whistle protection will be expanded. Even the policies will be reviewed to ensure that and promote whistleblowing in South Africa, because that is one of the major issues. We appreciate Madlanga Commission for going further into trying to protect witnesses by getting a service provider, but then it should not end with the commission. You're not only protected during the commission, your life becomes even in danger after the commission, because this commission, the scope is too broad, right? You can never say you are safe just after 3 months or 6 months of the commission. So it should look beyond, and also should have an additional arm to ensure that recommendations, although they are not legally binding, but there should be an institute that will be looking into those recommendations, where South African can go back to verify and tick boxes that recommendation 1 to 7 has been effected. We are paying 2, 3, 4 are pending, and with possible dates.
And I want to bring in as well, as we speak about recommendations, as we speak about the future and what the Madlanga Commission has essentially exposed in terms of the weaknesses within our police system. Going back again to Parliament, knowing, of course, about that disbandment. And I think that's really an important conversation, because Parliament essentially, as we heard from those WhatsApps, those are the opinions of South Africans. Parliament represents the voices, the interests of South Africans who would have also wanted to know essentially why the PKTT was disbanded. Is it a systematic failure, or are we seeing perhaps a lack of political will?
Let me put it to you this way, and I think one's got to take a look at the overall irony of the situation at the unit that's actually been disbanded. The fact is that the PKTT unit is very specific in regards to, if one could say, the investigation between, if one could almost call it, organized crime and political influence. And that's where one must actually consider the implication and the magnitude of the decision to disband it. Because basically, if one looks, that unit specifically deals with this whole concept of political killings, political affiliations, corruption investigations into direct minister where there is political involvement and interference in regards to investigation. So one must actually look at the overall irony in it of what is in actual fact happened, because that very unit, that is the one that's supposed to actually assist in ensuring proper governance, and that this type of conduct, if one could say, in the corrupt conduct, does not actually is protected from, is the one that's actually been now placed under scrutiny in this whole exchange. And that's where certain of the problems actually arise. And one could actually see that from the decisions that have been reached and the unlawfulness and overstepping of the boundaries in regards to the disbanding of it shows the complete lack of oversight, and that it's been vested almost in the hands of an elite few who are choosing to do with it as they wish and to further their own agendas.
And what recourse is there when an oversight body fails in its duties?
Well, this is where it's supposed to end up going to Parliament, and ultimately, if I could go ahead and cut to the chase, if it's found that a minister, especially in the case with this where it's Minister Mchunu, when Mchunu went ahead and overstepped these boundaries, and that deputy commissioners were sitting and authorizing and influencing political sway in the way it is, heads should roll. That's the nutshell of it. Is that there should, in actual fact, that those guilty parties and those wrongdoers should be stripped of their positions, and they must, in actual fact, be prosecuted. But whether that will happen is doubtful.
Well, Willem, I see you agreeing there as well in regards to that statement that heads should roll. What happens in this kind of situation where the work that is supposed to take place is not being done? The directives that are coming are not coming from those who are supposed to give them. What type of recourse do we need?
Well, I think if we take the lead of France, for instance, today, former President Sarkozy was sentenced to 5-year imprisonment because of some misdemeanors that he did. So that is a typical example of what should happen here. Whether you're a politician or whether you're a high-ranking official, there should be consequences, and consequence management should be done here in South Africa, because at the end of the day, it seems that is what the public demand.
And I would like to also ask then in regards to the Constitution and bring it back to that, because that was the conversation that, this was all about in terms of the laws that clearly guide this. And specifically looking at the fact that just because this was, of course, legitimized, apparently, by the president, what does this say as well in regards to the public trust, essentially, in policing? And that's to you, Willem. Yes, sorry.
Okay, sorry. We see that the public trust in policing is already at an all-time low. It used to be about 26%. Now it's just hovering above 20% according to the latest indicators. And that is really not where you want to be. At the end of the day, we are governed by the Constitution. And that's the highest power in our country, and of course the president is there to ensure that it is followed. So at the end of the day, your trust of your public is already extremely low, based on what happened in the past, and based on of course the handling of the previous commissions like the Zondo Commission and the inactions from them. So the trust is really low, not only in government but also in police, where we see that South Africa, with our extremely high crime rate, where it is out of control at the moment, and we don't seem to get a curb on that. And you can only do that if you have political will and if you have sound leadership, and then it trickles down all the way to your state policemen on the ground, where you have sound strategies, we have good operational plans, and we have enough resources. So all of that comes together with your political will, with your leadership, as well as with providing the police with the means that they need in order to effectively police South Africa. And that, again, will lead to your arrest, that will lead to good investigations, and that is the only way you're going to restore the trust of the public in the police.
All right. Well, when we return from the break, we continue our conversation, of course, with University of Technology criminologist, professor there, as well as criminal law expert, and our guest from the ISS. And this, of course, the conversation around day 6 of the Madlanga Commission when we return. Well, welcome back. If you've just joined us, we are having a panel discussion, of course, on the supposed blurred lines in the South African Police Service's leadership. And we've got a caller on the line, Cunningham from Roodepoort. Cunningham, thank you so much for your time. Talk to us a little bit about your opinions in regards to today's testimony.
My opinion on today's testimony, I think the analysts are incorrect. In the sense that Major van Rooyen, General van Rooyen, did not describe her own duties within the police force as a legal head of legal. And what role did she play in this saga? The second issue, General van Rooyen was there to give testimony on how police functions, but she was actually giving opinion on the testimony of Mkhwanazi and Masemola, not what she was supposed to give. Because the problem I have, what is a cartel? What is a syndicate? Because Mkhwanazi and Masemola have not defined that. They have not defined what constitutes a cartel, what constitutes a syndicate, and how is Mchunu and Sibiya members of a cartel and a syndicate, and what cartels and syndicates are they members of. The last thing I want to put is Major van Rooyen, when she saw that she's blundering between policy and direction as well as operation, she then spoke about the impact of policy on operations. Now, her testimony today left a lot to be desired, because she was not answering the questions in terms of her role as the head of legal in the police. And she was not giving a proper and accurate explanation of everything, including the definition of the cartel and the syndicate, which Masemola and Mchunu still have to explain to us. What did they understand about a cartel and a criminal, and a syndicate? And where does Mchunu and Sibiya fit being members of a cartel and a syndicate? Because people can't come and just throw concepts and terms. And what constitutes an associate?
All right. Well, thank you very much for that, Cunningham there from Roodepoort. We also have another caller, Richard from Sandton. Your opinion in regards to Major van Rooyen's testimony, specifically as well, looking at how she detailed the structures of the South African Police Service.
Good evening to you and your listeners, and thanks for having me. I want to start off by just clarifying something that Major General van Rooyen is not the legal head of SAPS. Lieutenant General Kamane is. But what became evident when Major General van Rooyen spoke is that her understanding of the actual crux of the matter wasn't really thoroughly dealt with, particularly where she mixed up what a unit is versus a task team. Now, Danhla Mkhwanazi testified the task team is a temporary measure. General Masemola also testified the same. Today we hear from this legal expert, and I put that in inverted commas, with experience of 40 years, but doesn't know the difference between a unit and a task team. But I also want to point out to your panelists this evening that the legal advisor today, Major General van Rooyen, spoke about the parliamentary sitting on the 5th of March. And I urge them to go and watch it because it's public information. And Lieutenant General Khumalo, the head of intelligence, led a presentation where he said that the PKTT had met all their objectives and they are winding down. That didn't come from the minister. It didn't come from Shadrack Sibiya. It came from Lieutenant General Khumalo, and he expressed that to Ian Cameron and the rest of the team. So I'm a bit baffled as to where these claims are coming from or allegations, but I urge people to go back and enlighten themselves on what's been spoken about.
Thank you so much, Richard. Appreciate that. That is Richard from Sandton. Two callers there with very scathing opinions in regards to what they thought. But very quickly, Professor, your closing remarks, especially as we head into tomorrow, I believe the National Prosecuting Authority taking the stand there.
We're expecting more verification. We're expecting more clarification with regard to the processes, investigation challenges, and where the case, because if it's NPA, for example, coming in, how are they dealing with the cases, the processing, and all, the resource issue and communication, and also there should be evidence of the documentation and proof of communication, should there be an allegation. And also from that, we should also be revisiting testimonies, particularly Mkhwanazi's testimony, to tap into tomorrow's, to check if they corroborate or conflict, or if there's rebuting from there. Then we will, yes.
Thank you so much, Prof. Willem, your remarks very quickly in terms of what to anticipate?
Yeah, it will be very interesting tomorrow. As we saw over the past week or so, that every day some more pieces of the puzzle comes together. So we believe tomorrow the picture will be a bit fuller, but a bit more complete, as they will build on into towards the end of the commission. So we are looking forward to it. We are looking forward also for corroboration of some of the testimonies, as the Prof said, and it's going to be an interesting day.
Absolutely. Ian, closing remarks.
I think I'm going to end up siding to a degree with my other two panelists, where it is going to be an issue of corroboration, further corroboratory evidence being given. I think it's also going to be quite interesting to see whose names are starting to get mentioned if one takes a look at what's been happening over the past few days of various parties' names getting dropped. various other oversights, and records being dealt with in respect of the Parliament, of government, particularly the government figures and individuals who are going to go ahead and still be subject to scrutiny and are going to be mentioned to come.
All right. Well, thank you so much. You heard there from our panelists this evening. I was joined, of course, by Tshwane University of Technology criminologist Kulufelo Rukube, criminal law expert in Alice, and Institute for Security Studies, Willem Els. Thank you so much for your time.